Hello everyone. So today's video we're going to talk about content types in SharePoint. Now SharePoint content type basically pulls together all the information about an item. Now that item could be different kind of files, documents, or an Excel workbook. Let's just say, for example, you have a document library and you have different kind of reports that you store in that document library. Now, each type of report might need a certain type of metadata, which is not required by the other type of a document. Now, using content types, you can basically manage different set of metadata for a certain type of documents, or you can even create document templates for those certain type of documents in one document library. Using content types, you can basically manage all the document libraries if they are using the same sort of metadata within your SharePoint online site. Let's have a look how to actually use content types and what are content types. So before we start creating content types, let's have a look what I'm actually talking about. So I currently have this document library. Within this document library, I have created two types of content types. Number one is basically employee contract and the other one is a sales contract, right? Now both of these documents, they basically have different set of metadata required for each of the document type that we are going to basically create, right? So for example, if I go to new, I can see that there is a sales contract, an employee contract. Now, the sales contract, the metadata which is required for sales contract is basically a salesperson, client company, and PO number, right? The three columns are attached to the sales contract. And for employee contract, I have employee name and date signed, right? But both of these are basically within the same document library. Now, both of these documents, they basically have different kind of templates as well. So if I click on sales contract, it basically opens up a sales contract document, right? Which is a separate document to employee contract. Now this is our sales contract document where I have sales contract and the client name, but obviously you can create your own template, right? Let me open up employee contract as well. So before I do that, let's just see what it actually does. So I'm going to rename this. Let's just call this sales contract demo, for example. And this is saved and we are going to close this one, right? So it basically created this document. Let me just refresh it so that the name basically updates. It should automatically update the name, but sometimes it's just a bit slow. Okay, so I've got sales contract demo, and these are the three fields which are attached to this particular document. So if I click on any of these, on the right hand side, I will only see that these three metadata columns are basically attached to this document type. So if I go to the properties on the right hand side, I can see that there is a name, title, salesperson, client company, and PO number. It doesn't ask me for employee name, date signed, right? So this is this document. But if I click on, let's just say employee contract this time, you will see that this employee contract is basically a different kind of a document template. So you can actually create, separate kind of document templates and attach to your document content types. So this is a different template. Let me just rename this to employee contract, for example. I just click on that and I'm just going to call this, I think it's still loading. So I just click on that again and yep, So let's just call this employee contract demo, right? And then we basically just close this window, and we have a new document created. And let's just click on the properties. Now, when I click on the properties, you can see that this only requires name, title, employee name, and date signed. It doesn't ask me anything about client company, PO number, and salesperson, because this content type only requires these kind of metadata, and it has a separate document template attached to it as well, right? So this is one kind of scenario. So you can create multiple kind of content types and attach different document templates to each content types, and also attach different kind of metadata requirements. And then you can manage all of your documents from the same document library. You can even create multiple views just for those content types and manage those documents from one document library, right? Other scenario could be where you have multiple document libraries, and in those document libraries you basically are using a new document type, which is by default, right? So by default, whenever you create a new document, it only requires a name and a title of the document. But in your organization, you might have a requirement that whenever someone uploads or create a document using that default document type, you basically want them to enter some extra information, which could be the status of that document, or it could be some sort of approval date or date created, right? Any metadata. Using content types, you can basically from one location add extra columns, and wherever that particular document type is actually used, in multiple document libraries, it will basically update all that additional information everywhere and in all the document libraries. What I'm trying to say is you can basically standardize the creation of all of your documents or the other information within your lists using content types. Okay, so we had a look at that, and let's just see how to actually achieve this now. So I have opened up a new site and I have a document library in that site. Now if I click on the new menu, I can see that these are the different options available to me right now. I can create a new Word document, Excel, right? All of these options. Now let's enable content types on this document library. Now to enable content types, I'll have to click on the settings gear and then click on library settings, and then click on more library settings, right? And from the library settings page, we click on advanced settings, and under advanced settings we have an option to allow management of content types. Currently this is set to no, but we are going to say yes to this, and we scroll down and click OK. Right? Once we do that, two things happen, right? One is we did not have this option on our document library settings page. So now we have an option for content types. Another thing which happened is if I go back to the document library and click refresh, the new menu has changed. So if I click on the new menu, all of the options which I had earlier, like to create Excel workbook and a PowerPoint, they all have disappeared. I had a Word document before, but now it only says document, because this document is basically a content type. So when we enabled content types, so I'm back to the library settings. So when we enabled content type, so this content type document is now visible on that new menu. Okay, so on that new menu, I can have document or link, but you can always click on edit new menu, and then you can select all of the other options which just got disappeared. You can basically add all of these again, and then you will be able to basically use all of these other documents as well within your new menu. But if you are using content types and this is a document library, let's just say for reports, then I'll stick to only the content types that we are actually creating, so that your users does not use all of these other options. For example, a Word document, right? So I'm going to quickly hide these options, and I'm going to only leave the document and maybe hide the folder as well. Okay, I just click on save. Okay, so far we have enabled a content type. Okay, so let's just go back to our document library settings and see what is this content type. Okay, so if I click on that content type called document, which basically goes back to the content type list, because this is a list content type, because we added this to a document library, and it basically says the parent for this content type is this document, right? And these are the two columns that are there for this list content type, which is sitting at your document library level. Okay, and then it tells you these are the columns, and the source of these columns is basically coming from the document, which is the parent, and then item, which is again a item level content type. Okay, I know this might be a little bit confusing for you, so just to give you an understanding, so this is the by default content type. Let's create new content types, and then you probably have a better understanding. Okay, so to create a new content type, okay, so we have this document library, and let's just say we want to add a different kind of contracts to this document library. Okay, so I currently have two set of documents, which is an employee contract, which is a Word document. So this is the template for employee contracts, and then I have a sales contract, which is for sales contracts. So if I open this, they both have different wordings within it. So this, it says sales contract, and if I close that one, the other one basically says employee contract. So you can create multiple document templates, right, which we are going to use in a minute. Okay, so you have different contracts. So I want to create two content types, one for the sales contracts and other for the employee contracts, and I want to attach different set of metadata columns for each kind of a document. Okay, right. Now to add new content types, which we call custom content types, right, we have to click on the settings here and then click on site settings. So we don't have site settings here. I just click on site contents, and then from there we'll just go on settings and then site settings again. So then I'm going to click on the site settings, and then under site settings there is basically web designer galleries, and under that you can see site content types. Okay, so I'm going to click on site content types, and this will then give me a list of all the content types within this site. Right, now these are the default content types. So for example, an item in a list is a separate content type, and then document is a content type in itself, right? As I said, content type is nothing but it has certain you can say metadata columns attached to it. It has certain properties attached to it. For example, it might have a certain kind of a document template, right? So it's a set of things which can be utilized in your SharePoint site. Okay, so we are going to create a document content type. Okay, so let's just click on create content type, and we want to name this sales contract. Okay, so sales contract. You can add a description here. Let's just say this is about sales contracts, right? You can use existing categories, or you can create a new category. So category is just how these content types will be visible under this gallery. So I'm just going to call it my custom content types. Okay, you can name it whatever you want. And then under parent content type, because this is a document content type, so the sales contract is a document, right? So this will basically fall under the document content types. Okay, so that it has the document properties. If you are creating a list, then you can create a list content type, right? So we're going to select document content type, and then the parent category is document content type, and the content type is basically a document itself, right? So sales contract is a document. Okay, once we've done that, then I'm going to click on create. Okay, so now it's going to create a content type for us, right? So all we did is basically created a shell content type. Okay, now with this content type, it basically added two columns, a name column and a title column. Because this is a document content type, so with document you have to have a name, and title is optional. Now we are going to add some columns for this content type. So this is a sales contract. So whenever this document is uploaded or created, we basically want our users to fill in some extra information for sales contracts. So we can say, one of the column is who is the salesperson. We can use existing categories, or we can create new categories. Let's just say call my custom columns. It doesn't matter what you use. This is more of for a identification purpose, right? And that's a single line of text. Default value is fine, and we want this column to be mandatory. Then you have this checkbox, update sites and lists. So this is used if you are already using this column as part of content types, and if you are making any changes to this site column, then it basically says update throughout the whole site and wherever it is being used. Okay, so let's just keep it checked, and then we click save. So we have our salesperson created, and then we're going to add another column, and let's just call it client company, right? So you signed a sales contract with a client, so client company, again single line of text, and this is a mandatory column. And then you can create multiple columns, of course, right? So far we have created two columns for this content type. Okay, so this was about the columns. Now we also want our users to fill out a template whenever they select sales contract, right? Now to attach a template, you have to click on advanced settings, and then we can say upload a new document template, and then I click on upload, and then I'm going to select the sales contract. That's the template that I basically created earlier, and I click on open. So we have attached our sales contract template. Permissions, I'm going to just say edit and then click on save, right? So our sales contract template is now ready. Okay, before we start using it, let's just create employee contract as well. So I'm just going to go back to content type gallery again, and I'm then going to click on create content type, and this time I'm going to call this employee contract. And I'm going to use the existing category this time, which is my custom content types. And again, this is a document. So document content type, and again, it's a document, and I click on create. And I'm going to now create different columns. So I'll just say create new site column, and then I'm going to call this column, let's just say employee name. Okay. I'm only going to create one column, but you can create multiple columns based on your requirements. And then again, I'm going to select my custom columns this time, because this is about your existing employees. So this could be a person column type, and under more options, we want this to be a mandatory column, and then we click on save. Okay, so we have only added one column. Okay, I can add more columns as well. I can also reference the columns which I created for sales contract. So if I click on add site columns and say add from existing site columns, right? And then I can look for the category where it says my custom columns, and I can see that, there is a column called salesperson, right? So I can basically make use of that column as well, which we created for our sales contract document. So that one column will be used in both of the content types, right? The idea is basically whenever you have to make a change to that column, so you just come and make a change from your content type gallery to that column, and it just gets basically pushed out to all the document libraries or content types which are using this salesperson column. Okay. We're not going to do that now, so let's just close that one. So we have created one column, employee name, under employee contract. Okay, our columns are now ready. So let's just go back to the marketing site again and go to our document library settings and see what actually happened there. I would say nothing happened because we only added these two content types, but those might appear under library settings as well. So I am now going to click on the documents again, and then I'm going to click on settings gear and library settings. And from library settings, I'll click on more library settings. And then under document library settings, I am back to our content type section. Done. So the two content types that we have added earlier, we actually added at the site level. Now we have to add those content types into this document library to make use of them, right? So I'm going to click on add from existing content types. So I am going to, you can, obviously select from this. You can filter it by my custom content types category, and then you can select employee contract and then click add. Okay. And I'm going to say okay. And when we go back to our document library settings, you will see that this employee contract is added. And under your columns, it has also added employee name and just the employee name for employee contract. Yeah. And then it actually tells you which column is basically used in which content type. Okay. So we don't have any columns for our sales content type as yet because we haven't added our sales contract. So let's just say we want to add our sales contract content type as well. So I'm going to click on my custom type and then click add and then click OK. So now we have three content types: document, employee contract, and sales contract. Okay, all of them are visible on the new button, and the default content type is this. So when I say default, whenever someone clicks on the new button, by default, this will open. Okay. We don't want this document content type here. We only want two. So I'm going to click on the document and then I'm going to remove it. Okay. So that's that. And then I'm going to click on delete this content type. When you click delete this content type, you are not actually deleting it from your top level site, right? You're not deleting it from the main source, because the main source is still this document. You're only deleting this content type from your document library. So I'm going to click on delete this content type and click OK. And on my document library settings page, I only have two content types visible. And if I scroll down, I can see that salesperson is also added, and that salesperson is used only in sales contract. And the client company is also used in sales contract. But the title, for example, is used in employee contract and sales contract, because title is coming from a different content type, which is a document content type, and title and name are common in both of our content types. Okay. Any custom columns we created within our content types will be, just assigned to those content types only, unless we add them from existing site columns, from one content type to other content type. Okay. All right. So we have added those. Now let's go back to our document library and see what actually happened. So I'm going to click on documents, and from documents, if I click on the new button, right, I can see that there is an employee contract and sales contract. Before we do that, I think we still have to attach our document template to our sales contract type. So I'm just going to quickly click on sales contract, or maybe from employee contract, I think. So let's just attach to employee contract and then click on the advanced settings and attach our document template. Okay. So I'm going to click on upload new document template. I'm going to choose the file, and then it's employee contract, and click open, and then click OK. Now we have attached, different document templates to our different content types. Then I'm going to click on documents again, and from documents, now I'm going to click on the new button and click on employee contract, right? So when I click on employee contract, it should open up that document template for employee contract, and it should, when we save this document, be asking me to fill out the required columns for that particular document type, right? So this is the employee contract template which has opened. You can modify this template, and let's just call this employee contract. So I'm just going to click on that. So this is a document, and I'm just going to call this employee contract demo, for example, and I'm going to just simply close this document. Okay. Now you can see that it says, there are some required metadata missing, but within this view, we don't have those columns added. So what we need to do is basically add all of those columns which we had in our document library. So for example, I'm going to click on edit current view, and I'm going to add employee name, salesperson. So let's just say we had a client company, we had employee name, and we also had salesperson. And I'm going to also add a column called content type as well, so that we can see what actually happened. I'm just going to move it to the last one, and I'm going to click OK. Now once I done that, all of these columns are now actually added into the view. So I can see that employee contract demo, and then there is an employee name, and there is a client company and salesperson, which are from my sales contract, right? But for this employee contract demo document that we have added, the only column which we need to add is basically employee name. So if we select this document and click on the information button, the only required column or the columns needed for this document should only be employee name and title and name. So let me just scroll it down, and I can see that it's the content type, employee contract, and then I have a name column, title, and the employee name column, right? Salesperson or client company columns are not needed for this document template with employee contract. Okay, so let's just add the name of the employee, and this is saved and everything is fine, right? So we have added this. Now let's try to add sales contract document. Okay, so I'm going to click on new and then sales contract. Now again, sales contract is a different document template, so it should basically just show us the sales contract document or the template that you have uploaded. Okay, so that's a sales contract document. This document can be modified. Now I'm going to change the name of the document, so I'm just going to name this to sales contract demo, right? So that's the document, and once you're happy, then you can click close, and then we have our new document added, right? Let's just refresh it so that it has the new name updated. Now when we add this sales contract demo, you might see that now it actually requires information on these two columns, because these are two mandatory columns for this sales contract, right? So if I select this document and then click on the information button, which basically shows the properties of this document, I should not be seeing the employee name at all, right? So if I scroll down, I can see that there is a salesperson, a client company, but there is no employee name. Okay, so let's enter the name of the salesperson. Let's just say it's John G, and the client company is let's just cancel that, and the client company is, let's just say, XYZ. Okay, so we have added these two details, and the document properties have been updated. Now this is just one view, all documents view, which gives you all the columns within this document library for all content types. But you can definitely create separate views. So for example, you can create a new view just for your employee contracts. So let's just say if you want to do that, employee contracts, and that's a list view. We click on create, and then you can only select whatever columns that you need for this template, or whatever columns are attached to this content type, right? So let's just say edit current view, and then we only going to select the columns for this particular content type, which is employee contracts. So we don't want salesperson, we don't want client company. We know that content type is this, but let's just leave it as it is. And under filters, then what we can say is let's just filter it by the content type, and we can say the content type is equals to, then we put the name of the content type itself, right? So content type is equals to employee contract, and then we can click OK. Similarly, we can create another view for our sales contracts. Then that will only give us the sales contracts and all the attached columns to that document template, right? So doing that, you can actually create multiple content types, and you can create or attach different kind of document types to your content types, and attach different kind of required columns for content types, right? So I have this one document library, and then within this document library I have different content types, and each content type has different fields or metadata or columns attached to it, which may be mandatory column or non-mandatory column. That way you can actually differentiate them. And it's only not just this document library, right? You might have another document library where employee contracts are managed or stored, right? Or you can actually create one specific templates for all of your contracts, and then you can actually enable or add those contract content types into your different document libraries where you actually use or store contracts. Doing or using content types, you can easily manage your documents, and you can basically manage the addition or modification of your columns of your content types from one central location. Okay, let me show you how. Let me quickly do that. So let's just go back to site contents, and we are going to create a new document library, right? I'm going to fast forward this whole thing so that we don't just sit around and watch the creation of the document libraries. So I'm going to create a new document library. Let's just call this contracts, and I'm going to click on create, and then I'm going to go to the library settings and basically add a content type to this document library. So I'm going to click on site settings, and then library settings, and then more library settings, and advanced settings, and then I'm going to click on the allow management of content types. I'm going to scroll down and click OK. And from the content types, I'm just going to add existing site content types. I'm trying to show this demo just to showcase the management of content types and the columns from one central place. So I've got this employee contract. I click on add and click OK. So we have added employee contract into another document library, right? Now let's just say we have a requirement and we want to capture more information on employee contracts. So what we might need to do is to basically then, for example, we want to add some extra column. So apart from employee name, we also want to capture the start date of the employee, right? That's just one example. So this is this is just my new library which I created. I just tried to modify the all documents view to have this column visible. Okay, now this content type, employee content type, is basically used in multiple document libraries. Okay, and you have a requirement to add an additional column to this content type, right? And rather than going into each document library, what you can actually do is you can basically add that column to the content type itself. Okay, so let's just say I go back to my content type. Let's just say library settings, more library settings, and then I'm going to go into my employee contracts, and then from employee contracts I'm going to go into employee contracts again, which is the parent, right? So that's the parent where we have these columns added. Now I'm going to add a new site column to this employee contract content type. So I'm going to click on add from new site column, and then I'm going to call this employee start date, right? And that's it, date and time column. And once you're happy with all the changes, and then I'm going to click OK, right? So this is now going to add a column to my employee contract content type, which it has added. And of course, this is not a required column. This is an optional column. Okay. So let's go back to our documents, for example, right? So let's go back to our documents document library where we have added content. Now, this is the employee contract demo. So if I click on that document, before I do that, let's just refresh it. Now, if I select this document and click on the information pane, right? So this is employee contract, and I'm just going to select it and then click on the information button. And under that, I should now see a new column that we've just added. So once it's loaded, so let me scroll down. So once I scroll down to this, I see employee start date. Now this is, so it's actually added to, the documents document library. So what it's going to happen is whenever we add any new columns or make modifications to the content type root, right, then it basically updates all that information to all of the sites or any content types which are actually using that content type. So this is just our employee, the documents document library, and we can see that the column is now attached here, and the same would be for our marketing contracts. So if I were to basically create a new employee contract into the new document library that I have created, this column would be there as well, right? So from one place, you basically added a side column to your multiple sources. So this is the new document, which is in our new document library that we have created. So if I close this one, and that's the document, and if I click on the information button, I should see the employee start date column within the properties of this document as well. So if I scroll down, yep, I can see that there is an employee start date, right? So I hope you enjoyed the video. So this is how you can actually use content types and manage your documents, lists and libraries, and basically standardize the creation of your documents. If you have any comments, please feel free to put your feedback in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching.